uh, 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 uh. And then Rarity says, "You guys, check it out!" And then Pinkie Pie said, "Rarity, this is awesome! You're purple, just like Twilight." And shine like the stars. Just like that when Pinkie Pie says, "You're purple, just like Twilight." Then Twilight said, "Oh, so we're both the same." Then Rarity said, "You're right, Pinkie. I look just like Twilight when I'm purple." Then Twilight said, "Well, guess you're kind of right. We're both purple." And then Rarity asked, "We look just like each other. I'm purple and Twilight's purple." Then Twilight asked, "I know." And then Rainbow Dash asked, "Hey, I want to try too." Then Rainbow Dash says, "Hey, I'm pink, just like Pinkie Pie." Then Pinkie Pie asked, "You look just like me, Rainbow." And just like that when Pinkie Pie says, "You're pink just like me, Rainbow." Then Rainbow Dash asked, "Yeah, I know, we're both the same." Then Rainbow Dash asked, "What's this one?" And then Twilight asked, "That is a dancing flower. It makes you want to dance." And then Rarity asked, "Hey, we're dancing to that dancing flower." Where Rainbow Dash says, "Yeah, this is awesome. I always wanted to dance." And just like that when Rainbow Dash says, "I always wanted to dance." Then Rainbow Dash says, "Okay, being dancing was awesome, but it's getting me kind of tired and my legs are starting to hurt, so I need to catch my breath." Also, Pinkie Pie said, "And what's that?" And then Twilight asked, "Pinkie, wait, don't touch that. And then Twilight asked, "That's a bubble plant. It looks kind of awesome, but just don't touch it, okay?" Then Pinkie Pie said, "Yes." Then Rarity says, "Got it." And then Pinkie Pie said, "But I do want to touch it." And then Twilight asked, "Pinkie, wait, don't touch it and don't get stuck in one of them." And then Pinkie Pie said, "Oops, sorry, Twilight. Can you get me down?" And then Rarity asked, "Don't worry, Pinkie, we'll get you down unless you get me down too." Then Twilight said, "Don't worry, you two. I'll get you guys down unless you get me down too." Then Rainbow Dash says, "Don't worry, you three. I'll get you down unless nothing doesn't happen to the Mother's Day gift." Then Rainbow Dash says, "Hey, get that back." Then Rainbow Dash says, "Hey, you dirty bubble, you accidentally sucked me." And then Rainbow Dash says, "How do we get down? We're just floating around back and forth." And then Rarity says, "Twilight, help!" And then Twilight said, "Don't worry, Rarity, I'll get you down unless I had to break out of this bubble." Where Twilight says, "I can't break out of this bubble. What if I blow this bubble?" And then Twilight asks, "Well, I'll try." Then Rarity says, "Twilight, I'm so happy to see you." Where Twilight says, "I know." Then Pinkie Pie said, "A little help here? I'm kind of flying back and forth, around and around in circles, but now this is not supposed to happen." And then Twilight asked, "Don't worry, Pinkie, we'll get you. Come on, Rarity, blow this bubble." And then Pinkie Pie said, Twilight, Rarity, I'm so happy to see you. Then Rarity said, me too. Then Rainbow Dash says, guys, I'm kind of flying around, and the Mother's Day gift got stuck inside a bubble along with me, and I can't run. And then Twilight asks, don't worry, Rainbow, we'll get you out of here. And then Twilight asks, okay, guys, blow this bubble. And then Rainbow Dash asks, Twilight, Rarity, Pinkie, I'm so happy to see you. Then Pinkie Pie asks, yeah, we're so happy to see you, Rainbow. Then Twilight asks, yeah, but how do we get out of this bubble? We keep flying around back and forth. Then Rarity asks, I don't know. How do we get out of this? And then Pinkie Pie says, I know. What if we use our equestrian magic and we use our harmonies to pop this bubble? Then Twilight asks, yeah, great idea, Pinkie. Let's pop this bubble. Then Twilight asks, magic of friendship. Make this bubble pop. And then Pinkie Pie said, so, what do we do now? And then Twilight said, and then Rarity says, oh no, we're falling down too fast. Then Rainbow Dash says, and we're gonna hit the ground. And then Pinkie Pie says, Twilight, can you make us stop? And then Twilight says, great idea, Pinkie. Let's use our harmony magic to make us stop. Then Twilight asks, magic of friendships, make us stop. Then Twilight said, phew, that was close. We finally stopped falling, but let's continue our quest. And then Rarity says, hey Twilight, which way is that sparkly purple flower? And then Twilight said, I don't know. And then Twilight asked, I don't know, how about these 3 bushes can help us? Then Rarity asked, great idea! And then Twilight said, wow, you can talk? Then one of the bushes says, of course we can. Who are you? Then Twilight said, I'm Twilight Sparkles, and that's Rarity, Rainbow Dash, and Pinkie Pie. We're on a quest to make this flower grow for Mother's Day. And then one of the bushes says, right, well, we're the singing bushes. We will help you know where the sparkly purple flower is. And then Rarity asks, really? Can you help us find it? And then one of the bushes says, great, after you sing with us. Then Twilight asks, sing with you? Then Rarity asks, yeah, that's what they have to do, Twilight. They want us to sing with them. And then Twilight asks, sure, we will sing for you. And then one of the bushes says, yeah, let's start this. And then it's the song called Which Way is the Purple Flower? And then that bush says, that sparkly purple flower is this way. And then Rarity asks, great, let's go. And then Twilight asks, thanks, singing bushes. And then one of the bushes, no problem. And then one of the bushes, oh yeah, we forgot, watch out for the flower chopping raccoons. And then one of the bushes, I hope they heard us. And then Rarity asks, it's so pretty over there. Then Twilight asks, yeah, and look, there's the sparkly purple flowers. And then Rarity asks, Twilight, it is kind of funny. We just went past the sign where the wild raccoons live. And then they said, chopping flower raccoons. And then Twilight asked, Rarity, Octavia does have a raccoon. And she taught us chopping flower raccoons love. Then Twilight asked, to eat flowers. Then Pinkie Pie said, yeah, they're after the Mother's Day gift. Let's get out of here. And then Twilight said, they're catching up to us. Rainbow Dash says, and they're after the flower. Then Rainbow Dash says, we gotta get away from them. Then Pinkie Pie said, allow me to do it. Then Pinkie Pie said, then Pinkie asked, maybe the bubble plant can help us. And then Pinkie Pie said, what if they like the bubble instead of the plant? And then Twilight said, Pinkie, you're right. They like the bubble instead of the plant. Or Twilight says, okay, 2 raccoons down. But wasn't there a 3rd one? But where's the other one? And then Twilight asked, there it is. And then Pinkie Pie said, it's on your head. Then Twilight said, really? Then Twilight said, oh yeah, it's on my head. And then Twilight said, run. Then Twilight asked, boy, he's one fast raccoon. We gotta get away from him. And then Pinkie Pie said, what if we hit up a tree? And then Rarity asked, Pinkie, we can't get up there. And then Rainbow Dash asked, yeah, we're too short. We can't get up there. Then Twilight said, but our harmony magics can help. Then Twilight asked, okay, magic of friendships makes us get on top. Then Twilight asked, phew, that raccoon can't get us up there. Then Pinkie Pie said, yeah, this is awesome over there. I can see Fluttershy, Applejack, and Sunset Shimmer, and Starlight Glimmer, and I can see Canterlot High, and I can see Applejack's Farm, and I can see Canterlot City from all the way over there. And then Rainbow Dash says, yeah, and I can see everything. And then Twilight said, did one of you hurt something? Did Pinkie Pie said, it wasn't me. Did Rarity ask, not me. Did Rainbow Dash ask, not me either. And then Rainbow Dash said, and then Twilight said, uh-oh, let's get down. And then Twilight asked, it worked. We went past the shopping flower raccoons. Now we can get to that purple flower. And then Rarity asked, sparkly purple flower? Here we come. And then Rainbow Dash says, I'll get us there. Then Rainbow Dash says, you guys hold on tight. And then Rainbow Dash says, hey, we're almost there. Let's stop. And then Twilight says, okay, let's use all our harmony magics to make this flower grow. And then they ask, magic of friendship, make this flower grow. And then Twilight asked, it worked. The flower already grew. Then Rarity asked, and our harmony magic finally worked. And that flower is perfect for Mother's Day again. And then Pinkie Pie said, yeah, our true magic finally worked. And then Rainbow Dash asked, yeah, let's go home. Then Pinkie Pie said, home, here we come. And then Pinkie Pie asked, Twilight, which way is home? Then Twilight said, wait, what? Then Twilight asked, oh no, now we can't find out which way is home. Then Rarity asked, Twilight, you're right, which way is home? Then Twilight asked, I don't know where home is. And then Rainbow Dash asked, I think I know. And then Rainbow Dash asked, I think while we're on a quest, I think we got too far. And then Pinkie Pie said, oh no! And that means then Rainbow Dash asked, we're lost. And then Pinkie Pie said, yo, now we're lost? Oh no, we can't get back home. Then Rarity asked, it's alright, Pinkie. Some of us can get back home. And then Twilight asked, how to get back home? Then Twilight said, I know, maybe our harmony magics can help. And then Rarity asked, great idea, Twilight! Mother's Day is at home. Then Twilight asked, yeah, let's do it. And they say, magic of friendship makes us go home. And then Twilight asked, it worked, we're home. And then Twilight asked, Starlight, Sunset, Fluttershy, Applejack, I'm so happy to see you. And then Fluttershy said, we're so happy to see you too. Then Applejack asked, what took you so long? Where Twilight asked, well, it's a long story. And then Twilight said, well, happy Mother's Day, Principal Celestia and Miss Luna. And then Principal Celestia says, Twilight, the flower already bloomed for us, and now we're so happy to have Mother's Day. And then Twilight asked, well, we need the purple flower's magic help to make this flower grow, because it didn't grow today, but we were on a quest to get that flower grow. And then Principal Celestia asked, that was so nice of you, Twilight. Then Twilight said, yeah, me and Rainbow needs Pinkie and Rainbow and Rarity's help. And then Rainbow Dash asked, yeah, but we kind of got lost and ended up blowing bubbles. And then Rarity asked, and we kind of ended up getting chased by shopping flower raccoons. But it's over. And then Twilight asked, happy Mother's Day, you two. And then Miss Luna asked, that was so nice of you, Twilight. Then Twilight asked, well, since Mother's Day is awesome, let's dance. Then Twilight asked, and you know someone who likes to sing, the singing bushes. Or when Twilight said, okay, any of us want to play a guess game? Then Applejack said, I do.